Welcome back to Inside number 23, my channel which is all about knitting and sewing and generally living the craftiest life possible. But you're going to know all of this already because this is actually part 2 of a 2-part episode. So if you have come straight to this episode without watching part 1, I will put a link below for part 1. So I would suggest watching that first. It is full of kind of administrative stuff, a couple of updates on some giveaways, some prize winners, some Cal news, and then all of my adventures in New York and Vogue Knitting Live. Here in part 2 it's going to be much more business as usual in terms of the podcast, so we're just going to kind of go through the normal structure of my everyday podcast and my every week, not my every day. Can you imagine if I podcasted every day? I would have nothing to share with you. But anyway, it's really nice to be back at this point, just doing my podcast as usual. I'm really excited. I do have some really fun things to share with you, and I just can't wait. I just can't wait to get you all caught up with everything that I've been getting on with, and I think we should just jump straight into it. So we're going to start off part 2 with what am I wearing? And yes, I have some handmade goodies on me today, and the most obvious is this piece of loveliness. Oh my goodness. So this is a shawl that I knit up last year, which I'm actually going to take off to be able to show to you properly. This shawl is the Duchess of Devonshire, and that is a pattern written by Kay Jones of the Bakery Bears. So as you can see, it is beautiful. It has this lovely lace edging, and the entire thing is garter stitch with rows of eyelet lace between. It's beautiful. I love it. I adore this pattern. I think it's gorgeous. And the yarn is Voolenvine Yarns. Let's just get a little close up here. It's Voolenvine Yarns in her Outlander colourway, and this is on Kristen's Wolke base, which is her MCN, Merino Cashmere Nylon. This is the first Voolenvine Yarns that I ever purchased. I managed to snag 2 skeins of her Outlander on her Wolke base, which, thinking back now, that was pretty skillful. I just managed to get that in an update. I know how in demand this colourway has always been, and I absolutely love this shawl. I am a little bit ashamed to say that I've hardly worn this project since I finished it last year. I recently started sorting through a lot of my wardrobes. I'm giving a lot of clothes away to charity that I'm no longer wearing, and sorting through all of my hand knit and handmade garments. I am a bit of a hoarder, and I tend to kind of keep things for long periods of time. So lots of things, if I haven't worn them in over a year, they are going. But this I rediscovered at the top of my wardrobe, kind of tucked away. And I've now allocated an entire drawer to, actually 2 drawers, one to hand knit sweaters and one to other hand knit garments like my shawls, so that I can see much better what I have. And my project really for this year is free the foes, because I've realised that there's a lot of finished objects that I've knitted and then I've just put away because it wasn't necessarily the right kind of weather to wear that particular garment, and I've just forgotten about them. And this shawl, my Outlander shawl, is one of those poor projects. So free the foes, guys. Let's start a hashtag or something, but let's all wear our hand knit stuff because it's gorgeous and lovely and it deserves to be seen by the world. So yes, I'm wearing this lovely shawl this week, and I just love it. I forgot how much I love it, and it's glorious. But also underneath that, as you can see here, I'm wearing one of my Agnes tops. This is a Tilly and the Buttons pattern, and I just adore Tilly and everything she does. All Tilly and the Buttons patterns I think are incredibly well put together, and a lot of people always ask me if I would suggest certain patterns for beginner sewists, and you can't go wrong with anything that Tilly does, really. She goes into such detail, and you actually become, I think, a better sewist and seamstress when you work through her patterns. But it's just a scoop neck short sleeve version of the Agnes top, and I love it. I love it so much. It's so comfy and cozy, and yeah, I'm very much enjoying it. I'm happy to say that I'm well on the way to being about 50% of my garments handmade at the moment. From after this sort out, I've realised that's the kind of place that I'm in, so you'll be seeing a lot more kind of handmade outfits hopefully in the near future on the podcast. But yeah, I'm just, like I said, free the foes! Free the foes! But moving on from what I'm wearing, let's jump straight into the woolly, yarny goodness, and let's kick things off with what's on my needles. I am so excited to talk about what's on my needles this week with you guys. It feels like it's been so long since I've actually had someone to have a conversation with about what I've been working on, and I'm really proud of a lot of the projects that I've been working on recently. So first and foremost, I am excited to be able to say that I have an FO to share with you this week. Woo! A FO, a finished object, for those of you who may not speak the lingo. I know it can be frustrating when people talk in kind of code, as it were, knitter's code, but yes, FO, finished object. This is my second pair of socks for 2017, my first completed ones being my Christmas Eve cast on, but this is my first Harry Potter themed project for 2017. And if you know about the Harry Potter Cal, which I talked about in part 1 of this episode, it's a year-long knit-along, and the real goal is to, if you can, knit one Harry Potter themed in any way, so Harry Potter or Fantastic Beasts or anything to do with the Wizarding World in general. If it's themed in a Harry Potter way, it counts, and it's to get one done every month. So my goal this year is to have at least 12 Harry Potter themed projects, and I have completed my first, and ta-da! Aren't these amazing? Oh my goodness. So this is a Hermione's Everyday Sock. Well, it's 2 because I've completed the pair, as you can see. And the yarn is Baerenwolle in the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds colourway. And it's not really showing up on the camera as kind of vibrant as it is in real life. There's a lot of fluorescent yellow, fluorescent green and hot pink in here, little bits of purple, and it's on quite a muted grey base, and I love these socks, you guys. I can't tell you how much I love these. I knitted these 2 at a time. I'm a convert, you guys. I love knitting 2 at a time socks. I know that I kind of said, oh, I don't really know, I'll probably go between, you know, 2 at a time and not, and 2 at a time the whole way. I really suffered from second sock syndrome, terribly so, like so much so that there are certain socks that I still have just one of the pair, and I can't really imagine myself ever going back and just knitting one sock on its own. These were the second socks that I have knit 2 at a time with a kind of textured pattern to them. My Christmas Eve cast on this year was the Mercury socks, which I adore. I absolutely love those socks. And that was more of a lace pattern, and I realised I could do that 2 at a time, so I thought, why not try it with the Hermione's Everyday Sock, which is a pattern that I absolutely love anyway. I have knit this pattern once previously, that was last year, but it was on a much larger sock, and it turned out it was huge. I still wear them, but they're almost like leg warmer socks because they're so baggy, but they are nice and cozy, so at least I still wear them, but these are just perfect. And I just adore Baerenwolle. This yarn I actually won in an Instagram giveaway. Vicky of Baerenwolle was giving away a skein of this yarn, and I luckily ended up being drawn as the winner. But it is one of my goals this year to get my hands on several more skeins of yarn from Vicky from Baerenwolle. Couldn't speak more highly about her, about Vicky and everything she does. Couldn't speak more highly about Hermione's Everyday Sock. This is a free pattern on Ravelry. It's by Erica Lueder. She does have quite a few Harry Potter themed sock patterns. I'm thinking of trying out a couple of different ones from her because they are free and they are all beautiful, and it's just fun to add a little bit of texture to your socks. But yes, this is the first pair of socks which is for the Box of Socks Cal as well, which I'm also taking part in this year. I did so last year and I am again this year, and the aim is to knit knit 12 pairs of socks at least in a year, and that's being hosted by Kristen of the Yarngasm podcast and Voolenvine Yarns. And yeah, I love them. Can you tell? I think they're beautiful. I'm very happy with them, and now that I have kept them all nice and neat to show you guys, I can finally wear them, which makes me so happy. Those socks as well were the socks that I have been knitting on during all of our travelling to and from New York. So to be honest, they were the only bright spot in a very, very dark, dismal experience of travelling, but at least I managed to get a lot of work done on my socks. So there you go, there's always a silver lining to even the most horrendous of situations. So that is the only finished object this week that I have to share with you, but I do have some works in progress, some of which you have seen before, some of which you haven't seen in a while either, but some of them are completely brand new. These, I can't remember whether or not I showed them to you on the last podcast. I know that I talked about knitting them, but I don't know whether or not I had actually cast them on. And living in my Puggy project bag, which was a gift from lovely Mel, thank you Mel, I have started another pair of socks, 2 at a time, and here they are. This yarn was very kindly given to me by Cindy of Mon Sheep Shop. This is the first of her yarns that I have started knitting up. It's a self-striping colourway and it is called Pumpkin Spice Latte. You knew the way to my heart, didn't you, Cindy? You really, really did. But I have put the heels in. I've got my little fish lips kiss heels in here. They do look really quite funny. And now I've started on the body of the socks. So these really, the end is in sight for them, to be honest, you know. They are pretty much almost done, because this bit is going to be so easy to do. I am knitting them on higher sharps on 2.25mm needles. This is just a vanilla sock pattern, which is something that I have developed kind of over time. I do a 60 stitch sock on 2.25 needles, but I have been using the Fish Lips Kiss heel, which, to be honest, I do like, but I'm not completely in love with it, but I'm using it until I can find a good pattern for a heel flap and gusset to be done toe up. That's what I really, really love. So for example, the heels on my Hermione's Everyday sock, let me just grab them. These use a heel flap and gusset, and these have, you can't really tell because the yarn is so crazy, but they have a partridge heel. So it's kind of got this lovely pattern to it. It's not just a regular slip stitch heel. But yes, these have a heel flap and gusset, which I really, really love. And I would like to be able to do that toe up. So if you guys have any good suggestions, if there is such a thing, this is how little knowledge I have about toe-up socks because it's a relatively new thing for me. If you have any good recommendations of patterns, be they free or paid for, that include a heel flap and gusset working toe up, I would really, really appreciate you letting me know, because that's something that I love in kind of these kind of socks. But I do really enjoy the process of toe up knitting for my socks, because I can try them on as I go. So particularly for vanilla socks and anything self-striping, I really like that. See, I've done self-striping socks in the past with a heel flap and gusset, and yes, it looks a little bit different from, say, you know, the Fish Lips Kiss heel, which I suppose looks more aesthetically pleasing when they're laid out. But when they're actually on my feet, I much prefer the feel of a heel flap and gusset. This has been a really roundabout way of talking about this, but yes, I love these socks, and these will also be Harry Potter themed. They're Pumpkin Spice Latte colourway, but I'm basically calling these my Pumpkin Pasty Socks, and pumpkin pasties are a big thing in Harry Potter. So my second pair of socks for the Box of Socks cowl, my second project for the Harry Potter cowl. And I'm feeling pretty on a roll, I'm not gonna lie. I feel really, really good about Harry Potter Cal, about my box of socks Cal. I've got my sock mojo going. I've got some garment mojo going, which is even more exciting because of the next things that I have to show you. But yeah, I just feel that my time surrounded by other lovely knitting obsessed people in New York really awakened the knitting love within me. And I'm feeling in a really happy place, which is great. Obviously I've been doing the Harry Potter Cal, but the other Cal that I'm currently hosting is the Andi Satterlund, which is Knitting Any Garment by Andi Satterlund. When I was in New York, I did keep my eyes open for worsted weight yarn because the majority of Andi's patterns are in a worsted weight. I saw some beautiful things at Vogue Knitting Live, but just nothing that I thought I'm going to be able to spend a lot of money on this and be able to purchase it. So I didn't end up buying any worsted weight yarn. But the one thing that I remembered when I got home is, wait a minute, I do have an Andi Satterlund project that I was working on and I haven't picked up in some time. And yes, this is not eligible for the Cal. I mean, to be honest, I'm not eligible for the Cal anyway because I can't enter for a prize in my own Cal, so I don't know why I'm explaining it. But this isn't my official knit along for my Cal. It's just something that I'm doing alongside it. And I thought it was worthwhile picking up a whip that hasn't had much work on it for a while, and it's living in my Yarn Seller Studios Ghastlies project bag. But yes, you may or may not remember at the end of last year I was knitting a cardigan for the Pumpkin Cal, which was being hosted by lovely Gabby and Joanna, and I was super excited about it. And I finished the body of a cardigan and then just didn't do anything else. This beauty. This is the Blaster cardigan, also known as my Pumpkin Spice cardigan, which I cast on, like I said, last year for the Pumpkin Cal. This was yarn that I received for my birthday last year, and oh, it's so beautiful. I love it so much. It's Eden Cottage Yarn. It's Bowland DK, which I think is 100% BFL, possibly. I'm not entirely sure. It's in the autumn colourway, which is this gorgeous orange. And basically, let me show you from one side. I had knit the whole of the body. So I'd knit the back and the fronts. I'd attached them to each other and then I had stopped. So I picked this up the other day, and this was one of the projects that I picked up whilst being off sick with laryngitis and conjunctivitis and a bacterial infection and being on antibiotics and having pain in my ears and my eyes and goodness knows what else. I needed some distraction, and the only thing that I could do whilst lying down was knit. So I picked up this and I cast on the first sleeve. Look at this. This is how much I've done. So I picked up stitches all the way around. I did the short rows for the cap sleeve, and I'm now actually into the main body of the sleeve here, and I'm doing decreases. I just love Andi Satterlund patterns, and I know that that seems a bit redundant to say because I'm hosting a Cal that's all about Andi Satterlund. Of course, I was going to say that I loved her patterns, but coming back to this pattern after, you know, after a long time of not working on it at all, I was a little bit worried that it would take me a while to get back in the groove of it. I just jumped straight in and it's been wonderful. Oh, look at how much I did on that sleeve. Like that's not nothing, is it? And I think if I keep working on this a little bit at a time, it is just going to be a matter of time. I mean, it's always just going to be a matter of time until something's finished. I'm being a bit ridiculous, but I love this, and my love for this garment has just been reawoken since I picked it back up. I always said that I thought it would go really nicely with this Agnes top. I think it's a real Halloween look, isn't it? But I love it. It's beautiful yarn to work with. It's a beautiful pattern to work with, and I'm just so excited at the idea of finally having this finished and being able to wear it on a regular basis, because one thing that I would like to do is finish up all of my garment whips so that I can start cracking on with all of the sweater's worth of yarn that I have behind me, because it's all so beautiful and it's calling to me. Every day when I come in here and I look at my stash, it calls to me, these kind of piles of beautifulness behind me. So little bit at a time, I'm going to start finishing up whips so that I can free some space and get some new things cast on, and it's all really exciting. But yes, this is my kind of extra bit of Andi Satterlund, because I thought I might as well, you know, feel like I'm taking part in my own cal, even if it is a whip, which is technically not allowed in the cal. I know, very, very naughty. But there is another project that's living in this same bag. That is my actual project for the Andi Satterlund, and I am going to share that with you now. So, like I said, I didn't manage to find any kind of worsted weight yarns while I was in New York. So when I got home, I was kind of looking at various sites to see whether or not I could find any worsted weight yarn. I then started to remember a cal. It's always a cal, it always starts with a cal, that is being hosted by Louise Scully and Blacker Yarns for the Edinburgh Yarn Festival. Now, Blacker Yarn is sponsoring the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and they're also hosting the Podcaster Lounge, which hopefully I'm going to be going to when I go to Edinburgh Yarn Festival. And also Louise Scully of the Knit British audio podcast is hosting this cal too. And the idea is that if you knit something in Blacker Yarn's yarn and you come to this event that they are hosting at the Podcaster Lounge, you get a discount off of the Blacker Yarns products. And I have been a big fan of Blacker for quite a long time. I've heard nothing but good things across the UK podcasting community, but I've never used their yarns before. But when I looked at their website, when I remembered that this cal was going on, I thought that might be interesting. Maybe I could purchase some Blacker yarns and I could use that for an Andi Satterlund garment, because that would kill two birds with one stone. I'd be taking part in the Edinburgh Yarn Festival knit along, which is something that I really wanted to do because I'm so excited about it and I'm really kind of wanting to get in the hype of the whole event. And I'd also have something for my own cal. So I looked through their website. They didn't have any specific yarn that was worsted weight, which kind of made me feel a bit like, a bit rubbish. But then I noticed that something that they did have was Aran weight yarn. So this is where the story gets slightly more complicated. I have before used Aran weight yarn in worsted weight yarn patterns. It depends on the pattern. If the pattern is used a heavier weight worsted, it's relatively easy sometimes to replace that with an Aran weight yarn. If it's using a lightweight worsted, you may be able to get away with a DK weight yarn, but going for Aran is kind of pushing it. I got overexcited and didn't check my yardage correctly in terms of how much yardage there was per kind of 50 grams. I just saw the most beautiful yarn and I wanted it. Pretty much I went, I want this yarn, this is beautiful, I want it now so that I can cast on a cardigan right away and have it ready by Edinburgh Yarn Festival, which is at the beginning of March. And that was where my brain was. It was only when the yarn arrived that I realised that I'd probably made quite a big mistake. Because the pattern that I wanted to knit, the Andi Satterlund pattern, calls for a worsted weight, and when you look at the kind of yardage used in the worsted weight yarn, it is much more a light worsted than a heavy. But let me show you the yarn that I purchased because I'm still using it. I'm crazy, you guys. I don't care. I'm just going to go nuts and use an Aran weight yarn for a worsted weight cardigan, but I'll talk you through that in a minute. But this is the yarn that I purchased. So this is Blacker Classic. It's a British wool and it does have some Blueface Leicester content. And the lovely thing about Blacker is that it is all British produced yarn that's used in its yarn. And it also says it's made in Cornwall, and this particular colour, it's a woolen spun Aran weight yarn, is just called pale green. But how beautiful is that colour? I mean, I saw that and I just thought, I need a garment in this. It's a lovely colour, and it was actually not completely inexpensive, but it was very, very reasonably priced to buy a sweater's quantity of this yarn. So that's what I did. I'm really happy with it. The other lovely thing about it is that it really is wearable next to the skin. She says to scratching her neck with yarn. Oh, I'm ridiculous, I know, but it is, I would say if you have very, very sensitive skin, this may not be the best thing to wear right next to your skin, because it does have a little bit of, I would say, a grip to it when you feel it running against your skin. This is not 100% merino yarn, put it that way. But I do have a sweater, my burgundy cabled sweater, that is more this kind of a yarn, so kind of Blue Face Leicester blend with some more British yarns. And it doesn't bother me at all, because when I blocked it, I used some really lovely wool wash, and that just smoothed everything out, and it feels glorious to wear. It's not merino, it's not like a merino cashmere blend or something like that, but it's, to be honest, for a lot of things, I actually prefer this kind of thing for a garment because of its resilience, because of its strength, and it's just great. It's a really, really lovely yarn. But obviously I was facing a bit of a conundrum, because my gauge was completely and utterly off with this in comparison to the worsted weight yarn that the pattern called for. The pattern that I picked was the Wainthrope cardigan, which is one that I've been wanting to knit for a very, very long time. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and one of the things that particularly appealed to me was the full length sleeves on this sweater. A lot of sweaters that Andi designs do have kind of shorter sleeves or 3/4 length sleeves, and I really wanted something that went all the way down to my wrists. So this was always going to be the design that I wanted to do. I am fudging this a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, and it's not by any means going to be perfect and exactly as it is in the pattern. I have sized down a needle size. It calls for the largest needle size being 4.5 millimeters, and I have gone down to 4. My gauge is still too big, but I have then also gone for a smaller size of the pattern, and that means that at the moment I am coming up with a garment which gives me, I believe, 1 inch of negative ease. It's not going to be as tight and as kind of vintage style as the pattern is, as it's beautifully modelled by Andi in the pattern. But to be honest, because I'm using a heavier weight yarn, I think that this is going to look a little bit better to not be as figure hugging, because it's a heavier weight sweater. Having a little bit of space in it's not going to be a problem. But let me show you how much I've done so far. The pattern starts, the part that I have started with, rather, can't speak, is the back piece, and it's very curly, so it's difficult for me to show you, but if you can see here, I have done the first lace repeat, and I think it looks great. Oh my goodness, I love it so much. So this is going to be the back piece, so it will go across the entirety of me, and as you can see, that's not a bad fit. Going from shoulder to shoulder. It's maybe slightly bigger than it should be, but I'm happy with it. And like I said, because it is a heavier weight garment anyway, having a little bit of extra room, I don't think is going to be a problem. Just means that I can wear kind of more things underneath it and be all super cozy and lovely, and I am in love with it so far. I really, really am. I haven't knitted anything in this colour for a very long time, and I mean, look at that lace pattern. It's just everything. It's beautiful. The nice thing about this yarn as well is that because I sized down a needle size, it is coming up with it's not hugely tight, but it is quite a tight feeling fabric, a firm feeling fabric, and I just won't block it hugely. I'll block it quite gently just to smooth everything out, and I'm very confident that this is going to be something that I'm going to really enjoy wearing when it's done, and I just love it. That lace just kills me. I love it so much, and because it's Aran weight, it knits up like a dream. This is literally like 2 evenings worth of knitting, and I've already got this much. It's going to fly off the needles, which is what I wanted, considering it needs to be finished by the beginning of March. But yes, this is my official entry for my own cowl, even though it's not an entry for the Andi Satterlund. This is my official entry for the Blacker Yarns knit along for Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and I'm going to be wearing this in Edinburgh in March. So hopefully at least one day it's going to be a little bit colder so that I can get away with wearing an Aran weight cardigan, otherwise I'm going to boil. I'll have to take a big bag with me just in case. But yeah, I'm loving it so far, like all of Andi's patterns. It's a joy to work on, and yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for this to be finished. Okay, so those of you who watched part 1 of this episode will know that for a couple of my purchases and gifts that I received from Vogue Knitting Live, I was unable to show you a complete skein of yarn because I was hinting very heavily that I had started a new project. It's something that I've been showing on Instagram in small increments, but it's also a pattern that has swept through the entire knitting nation, and everybody seems to be completely and utterly obsessed with it. And that is, of course, the Find Your Fade shawl by Andrea Mowry. I cast on this project. It's one of the projects that has really seen me through my illness of the last week. I was so miserable. I decided at that point that I needed something that would just give me joy and happiness, and that was the Find Your Fade shawl. This isn't something that I've ever shared on the podcast before. This is its first ever episode. This is its debut. And you might be a little bit surprised at how big it is already, but bear in mind, I have been in bed for the past week, and bar a couple of bits of knitting on my Andi Satterlund cardigans, maybe a few rows on some socks, this has been my monogamous knit for pretty much the last week. So starting with my first yarn, this is a Voolenvine Yarns. So here's my little kind of tail. This is how it's cast on from a very small point, and then there are increases. You'll all have seen this shawl everywhere, so I don't know why I'm explaining that, but this is Voolenvine Yarns, first of all. So this is Kristen's Venus Flytrap colourway, and this is actually her narwhal base, which is a luxury base she has that has silk in it. And this is still, because it's only a tiny bit that's used for this first section, I'm going to be using it to knit Kristen's shawl, the Wildesmeer shawl. I have almost the complete skein left because it's such a tiny little bit of yardage that you use for this first section, but knitting with it made me realise that I need in my life at some point a sweater's quantity of this base. The narwhal base is, it's amazing, and the colour, I mean, I could do with a sweater's quantity of this colour. I mean, to be honest, I could do with a sweater's quantity of pretty much every colourway Kristen has ever dyed, but yes. So as you see, it goes from a solid to the lace, and then I go into my first colour melt. And this colour that I used to melt into is one very special skein of yarn. This is by Molly of A Homespun House. Hi Molly, if you're watching. This is one of my favourite skeins of yarn, but I've tried it for a couple of different projects in the past and nothing has stuck. Nothing has sung out to me as being the perfect project. But when I added it to my row of yarns, when I laid them out, I realised that this is where it's supposed to be, at least just this small part of it. So this is Xenophilius Explains the Deathly Hallows, which was one of her Harry Potter Yarn Club colourways. It's in her Olsen base, which is a superwash merino nylon, and it is Xenophilius Explains the Deathly Hallows. The next colourway that I melt into, can you recognise this? This colourway was the one that was given to me by lovely Julie of Sweet Sparrow Yarns. This is her Miss Honey colourway on her Gosling base, and it's beautiful. Oh, it's gorgeous. So the Gosling base is an MCN, merino cashmere nylon, and so my Xenophilius Explains the Deathly Hallows is just melting into this gorgeous golden yellow with little areas of soft pink, and I just love how this colour has some really beautiful kind of dark gold tones alongside the more pale pinks and the pale golds. I think it is stunning. And just look at that lace section there. Oh my goodness. It's amazing. It's just one of the most beautiful things I have ever knit on, and I love it so much. My next colour fade is actually probably the most subtle that I have in the entire project. But this fade is going into one of my all-time favourite skeins of yarn that I've ever purchased. But again, I couldn't find the right project for it. But as you can see here, this is my colour fade here into this colour. Oh my goodness. This colour is Fantastic Mr. Fox. So this one down here, it's Fantastic Mr. Fox, and that is by The Fawn and the Fox, which is the Fawn Knits podcast, and Fawn and the Fox are both owned by Lara. I have been a huge fan of hers for a very long time. This was the first skein of yarn of hers that I ever purchased, and I just think it looks beautiful. I really enjoy the fade between Miss Honey and Fantastic Mr. Fox. I think it's just subtle and gorgeous, and I'm just so happy with how it looks. This is a badger base yarn, which is, I believe, a blend of BFL and nylon, but how gorgeous is that? Next is my other purchase from Vogue Knitting Live that I showed you in a cake. So we can see here, Fantastic Mr. Fox melts into Shirsty Cat. That's the yarn dyer, and the colour is Candy Swirl, and that's this kind of burgundy, purple and natural looking yarn here. And you can see my little Moomin here. It's my little gold Moomin progress keeper. He's moved all the way down this shawl. Moved, Moomin, it's ridiculous. When I was looking through my my lovely stash, doing my sort outs that I've been doing recently, I found a skein of yarn that was given to me by a lovely viewer this last year, and it's this one. So this is Life in the Long Grass, and this is the turf colour. And as you can see, it's quite a bit darker. There's lots of purples and burgundies in here, but there is a little bit of natural along with some more orangey red tones. And I just thought, this looks to me to be the perfect colour to fade from the Candy Swirl into something a little bit more intense, because the colour that I want to end my fade with is this one, and you may recognise this yarn because this is the remainder of the yarn that I have left over from my August mittens. So this beautiful rich burgundy coloured yarn is John Arbor Knit by Numbers 4-ply in the shade 74, and I just think these really will look lovely, kind of melting into each other. So I'll be able to end, as I began, on a more solid and darker toned colour. So currently, I'm still on my second to last colour, but let me just show you how they are melting. So here we go. It's definitely a more stark melt than the others that I have done previously, but I am enjoying it because there are purples and burgundies and reds in this colourway, in the Life in the Long Grass colourway, that do get picked out by the Candy Swirl. So yes, that's how much work that I have done on this Find Your Fade shawl since I have been unwell. I have a very long shawl. Look at it. Oh my goodness, it just goes on. Goes on and on. It's crazy. I saw on Instagram that Tracy of Nora George has recently finished her Find Your Fade. She's actually planning a second one, I believe, but she was blocking it, and to see how big it was, I couldn't believe it. I was really just overwhelmed at how big it was. But mine is nearly finished. I have 2 more colours, so I have this colour to kind of complete and then my last colour to add, and it will be done, and then I'll have to find somewhere to block it. But yeah, the Find Your Fade by Andrea Mowry, and I currently don't have a project bag for it because it's too big. There's one more thing that I want to say about this project before we move on. I'm not going to tell you exactly where these came from yet because I'll be sharing that a little bit later in the episode, but one of the most exciting things about this Find Your Fade shawl is that I have been knitting it on signature needles. This is my first ever pair of signature needles. They're 3.5mm, size 4, and I love them. It was a complete surprise that I ended up having these, which I'll go into detail a little bit later, like I said, but the hype, they are worth the hype. I really want some in 2.25 for sock knitting. If they do them that small, I'd be very tempted to get another pair in 4mm for other shawls, as I find that the majority of shawls that I tend to knit tend to be on the 4mm needles. But I love them. I'm so happy to have them, and it's just made the entire process of the Find Your Fade even more enjoyable. Okay guys, so for the next section of the podcast, it's actually the return of a segment that hasn't been with us for quite some time. It's been on a bit of a hiatus, and that is For the Love of Pod. So for those of you who've been with me for quite some time, you will know that For the Love of Pod was a segment that I used to have on the podcast, which was talking about different podcasts that had for that week brought me a special amount of joy. My experiences in New York, being around all of these wonderful people who have brought me so much joy within the podcasting community, who do so much for me, I wanted within my podcast to give a little bit back to some other podcasters and maybe introduce you to some people that you may not know about, because I always say the reason that my channel has grown in the way that it has over the past year and has become what it is to me and what it is to a lot of other people is because of the support that I've received from you lovely people who watch, but also the other people in the knitting and podcasting community. So every couple of weeks or so, I'm going to be doing For the Love of Pod and talking about one podcast in particular each time that's bringing me a lot of joy and that maybe is possibly a newer podcast. It may be an older podcast that I've just started watching or that I've started rewatching, that type of thing. But yes, this for the first time is it's kind of the revamp of For the Love of Pod, I guess. And I have a very special podcaster to talk about this week. Particularly special for me because I've pretty much binge watched every episode that she has ever recorded over the past week because I was pretty much just bedbound. And I ran out of my regular podcasts to watch because, you know, spending that amount of time in bed, you tend to get through a lot of podcast material very quickly. And this is someone who I have been watching for the past several months, enjoying very much, but now because I feel that I've watched her entire back catalogue, I know for a fact that I absolutely adore her, and that is Amy of the Stranded podcast and Stranded Dye Works, the indie dyeing company. Now, Amy, like myself, is based in the UK, which is always really lovely to find another UK podcaster, and I just admire her so much and appreciate her podcast on so many levels. She's an incredibly prolific knitter. She is always knitting on multiple things. So if you enjoy watching podcasts where someone has a wide variety of projects at any one time, Amy is definitely your girl. She knits a lot of garments, a lot of socks, she knits hats. She's just fantastic, and more than anything, I love her personality. She has a wonderful chatty personality when she's podcasting. It really does feel like you're just sitting down for a chat and a knit with a really good friend, and I hope, Amy, that in the near future we get to meet in person because I genuinely feel like we could be very good friends IRL, in real life. On top of all of that, she is an incredibly talented indie dyer. She talked recently in one of her episodes, I believe, either towards the end of last year or the beginning of this year, that one of her goals was to turn her yarn dyeing business into a profitable business, and she's been able to do that. She just celebrated, I believe, her 1-year anniversary of her business, and she's going from strength to strength. She has an incredible eye for colour, so many fun colourways in her shop. I really want to get my hands on some of her yarn very soon, and I just think that she's marvellous. Genuinely, if you want to be inspired from a creative level in terms of the things that she makes every week, from a businesswoman level for what she does with her business, and just on a personal level because she is a wonderful, wonderful person to spend a little bit of time with each week, please check out Amy. I believe she is Amy Florence on Instagram. Go over and show her some love. Tell her that I sent you if you do subscribe and you like her, and you couldn't fail to like her. She is wonderful. So for this week's For the Love of Pod, it's all about Amy and the Stranded podcast. I have one more section before we head into General Waffle, which I know is a firm favourite of you guys, but it is owl post. Yay, the little owls have been flying around and bringing me some lovely goodies. I have received quite a number of packages over the past week. It's been a little bit crazy with the amount of things that have been coming through my letterbox. The owls must be exhausted, so I'm not going to be showing you absolutely everything this week. I'm hanging on to a couple of things for next week because let's spread things out a little bit, but there were a few things that I really just had to share with you as soon as possible. So I was incredibly excited recently to be contacted by Maria of Tuscan Knits. She is an indie dyer and she dyes up the most beautiful things that I have really ever seen. I had seen her yarn previously. I believe it was on the Brooklyn Knit Folk podcast with lovely Jacqueline, and I was just swooning, and I followed her on Instagram for quite some time. So to have her get in contact with me was amazing. So thank you, Maria, and hello. Maria asked if I would like to have a skein of her newest yarn club that she has created, which is a Beauty and the Beast themed yarn club, because she knows how much I love Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast is one of my all-time favourite things ever. Anything linked to Beauty and the Beast. And I don't just mean the Disney story. I mean any novel that's ever been based on Beauty and the Beast. You can pretty much guarantee I've read it. All of the original French movies, for example, and all of the original fairy tales that come around that particular story. I am obsessed. I love them. And so to have someone recognise that love and want to send me something for it really, really touched me. And of course I said yes, because I've just been dying to get my hands on some Tuscan knit yarns. So the parcel arrived this week, and in it is one of the most beautiful skeins of yarn that I have ever seen. And it's this. So there is the label, and this is the colourway. Oh, it's so beautiful. I just can't even handle how beautiful this colour is. It's this beautiful kind of dusky pink purple with kind of grey undertones. I absolutely love this. You can see it says Beauty and the Beast Yarn Club, and this colour is called Just a Rose. The base that it's been dyed on as well is something that I've never used before. It's called the fuzz base, that's what Maria calls it. It's a fingering weight yarn. It's 20% kid mohair, 25% nylon, and then 55% merino. So it's like a merino nylon blend, but because of that mohair, it has an extra softness to it, and then this beautiful halo. So it's very appropriately named Fuzz, and I can't tell you how much I love this colour. It's perfect. This colourway is everything. But the thing is that being the generous soul that she is, this was not the only skein of yarn that came in my parcel. There was some other lovely things in there. I mean, there was chocolate in there. That didn't last very long. I ate that chocolate. But on top of that, she added a little note that said, I also included some other things that I thought you might like. And she included 2 skeins of this colourway. I mean, can you even? I was dying anyway when I saw this colourway. It's beautiful. And again, it's on the fuzz base, but the name of this colourway is Pigwidgeon, and it's named after Ron's little Pigwidgeon owl from Harry Potter, and I just die. I think it's beautiful. I love it so much. It's just perfect. It's perfect. Look at it. But also, how beautiful do these look together? I'm a little bit obsessed with how these look together, the pink, purple, and then the greys of the Pigwidgeon. I really think that these have to be something altogether. I have to do something with all of these. I just think that the combination of these colours together is something really special, and I think that for a garment it would be wonderful. But let me know if you have any ideas, preferably not a shawl. I don't think that I would want these as a shawl. I think it would definitely be something garment wise, but I love them. I love them so much, and I cannot thank Maria enough. Thank you, Maria, for making me so happy and sending me such beautiful yarn, and I genuinely cannot wait to cast on something with this yarn. It's just beautiful. Definitely check out Tuscan Knits, follow her on Instagram, stalk all of her shop updates, because believe me, you will not be disappointed. So the owls did bring me one other thing that I'm going to share with you this week, and this is probably one of the most overwhelming gifts that I have ever received. One of my lovely viewers, Ellen, got in touch and said that she had something, a little something, I think she originally said, that she would really like to send me. I did get back to Ellen and I thanked her, and I was like, it would be incredibly generous if you would like to send me something. That would be wonderful. This was before I went away on holiday to New York, and when we returned, there was quite a substantial package waiting for me. And I opened this parcel, and genuinely, I mean, I was unwell when we got back from New York, but you know what I'm like. When I'm happy, I genuinely cried. And let me just show you. Ellen, I believe, was having a bit of a de-stash because knitting is not her #1 priority any longer. And some of the things that she sent me, I can't even tell you how happy they made me. First of all, there was this project bag, lovely sheepy project bag, which is by Little Skein and the Big Wool, and I just think it's adorable. Inside that bag was a little notions pouch. It's like Russian dolls. Inside that notions pouch with some felted stitch markers. These are by Gelby, and they have little tiny sheep that have been embroidered onto them, little French knots of sheep, and they are beautiful. I noticed that the entire parcel was smelling beautiful, and I realised that it was this. If you can see that, it's Tuft Woolens. And Tuft Woolens is not something that is available in the UK. There we go, Tuft Woolens, and this is a wool soap. It's juicy orange and ginger, and it just smells amazing. She also sent me some little wooden buttons. These were by Gnome Acre. There are little balls of yarn, little leaves, and a couple of hearts in here. Every time I opened up another part of this parcel, I was almost crying. She sent me 6 buttons by Jenny the Potter. These buttons have little bicycles on them, and aren't they just beautiful? It's almost as if she got inside my brain and could just see everything that I had ever wanted in my life, because Ellen is the lovely lady who also sent me the pair of signature needles in this parcel. So imagine opening up a parcel to all of this gorgeous stuff, and on top of that to have a set of signature needles. But on top of all of these good things, Ellen also included a selection of yarn, and with each one of these that I pulled out, I just died. First of all, I have a skein of Leading Men Fibre Arts. I've never used Leading Men Fibre Arts before, so this is exciting for me. This colourway is Foliage, and if you know anything about me and the type of colours that I enjoy, you'll know that I was very, very excited when I pulled this out. It's beautiful and I love it. I think it is gorgeous. The next skein, because there are quite a few that I pulled out, I don't necessarily know how to pronounce this name, so I apologise, but it is Quare Fibre. You see Quare Fibre. And this colour is called the Witching Hour. It's on a sparkle sock base, so it is merino, nylon and stellina. And from what I can see, I think it may be self-striping. But again, it's exactly the kind of colour that I love. It's all these muted tones with little pops of jewel tones of a kind of teal and a red. And I love it. And you can bet your bottom dollar this is going to be one of my Harry Potter socks this year, because Witching Hour couldn't really get more appropriate and I absolutely love it. Talking about self-striping, there are a lot of US-based self-striping yarn producers that I haven't ever been able to try, just because of, like I've said previously, it is expensive buying yarn from the US and then importing it over here. So there's lots of things that I've wanted to try but I've never had the opportunity. One of those is Mustache Yarns, and Ellen sent me a skein. This is Perfect Sock self-striping, and it is in Daily Eggs, which is this beautiful speckled colour, which is obviously inspired by birds' eggs, but it is gorgeous. It's uneven stripes, and I love it. I absolutely adore it. Everything, like I said, everything that came out of this parcel was bringing me so much joy and happiness. But you guys, in terms of everything that came out of this incredible parcel, I have left the best till last. Because you may or may not remember, at the end of last year, there was a particular skein of yarn that I was absolutely dying to get my hands on. I had not been able to get hold of it, however hard I had tried in various updates for this particular dyer, who is someone that I admire so much. And when I opened up the parcel and saw what was inside, I genuinely screamed because she sent me a skein of Jinx Yarns Gingerbread House in her power sock. So it is superwash BFL and nylon, and it's the Gingerbread House colourway that I have been dying to get my hands on for about the past year and a half. And as if that weren't enough, it has the Sucre miniature Gingerbread House charm in there. As if this couldn't get any better, there's a Sucre miniature charm. It's one of those moments when you feel that genuinely someone has got inside your brain, worked out everything that could possibly make you happy and has sent that to you, and that's what that parcel was. So Ellen, thank you so much. I appreciate the fact that you reached out and wanted to send me something, because the podcast brings you joy. You sent that joy back to me tenfold. I can't tell you how grateful I am, and I'm just sending you huge amounts of love. And just thank you from the very, very bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. So after all that, it is time for the final segment of the podcast, which is, of course, General Waffle. General Waffle. This is just going to be short and sweet for this week. A lot of stuff's been going on in the world the last couple of weeks. A lot of things that have left quite a lot of people unnerved, disquieted, afraid, dare I say it, for some people. General feelings of unrest and concern amongst so many different parties across the world. It's kind of insane that we can be in this kind of a position. It's not really the way that a lot of us wanted to start a new year. But I, like a lot of people, really appreciate and love the fact that within this community, within the knitting community, within the podcasting community, we have an area not necessarily of respite, because I do feel that a lot of people are very much representative of their views and their viewpoints. I would like to consider myself as being one of those people. However, this is a place where only love is spoken here. And without fail, that is the kind of attitude that I get from every single one of my viewers, from every other person that I see that puts out information into the podcasting world. We are a society of acceptance, of appreciation, of a shared love of all things yarny and crafty, but we treat each other with care, without rudeness, without ridicule, and I can't tell you how rare that seems to feel in this day and age. I think that it's important to recognise how special this thing is that we have together within the knitting community, within the podcasting community. This doesn't happen everywhere. It's very clear that this is not a viewpoint that is shared universally across the world, and I hope that we can continue, that we can strive to put this positivity, this love, this acceptance, this openness into every aspect of our lives. I'm trying, and it's true, it's being the change you want to see in the world. And I think that what we have within this community, as I've said many times before, is something that it would make the world a better place if more people just treated each other with the love and respect that we do here. I've felt it more and more recently than I ever have previously, going to New York, meeting so many of my viewers in real life, meeting my fellow podcasters and talking with them. And since I've been back, the amount of support that's been shown to me by you guys, it's overwhelming. I love you all. I appreciate you. I think you're wonderful. And thank you so much. I'm pretty sure, even though that was a very small waffle, I have been waffling along for almost 2 hours. So I think that that's enough for a waffle. I definitely have some future general waffles in the pipeline. With Emrys, we have quite a lot of stuff planned, which is very exciting, stuff that we can share together. But for now, after this very long, double-parted episode, I just want to say thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe if you haven't before now. It's the best way to be kept up to date as to when I have videos uploaded on the channel. And feel free to hit the little bell icon, which will send you a notification when one of my videos becomes live. You guys, like I said, you're amazing. I love you. I hope you all have a wonderful week, filled with sewing and knitting and love and respect and all of those good things. I will see you next week with bells on. I can't wait to share with you everything that I'm going to be working on. We have some big plans and it's really, really exciting. For now, thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for just being you guys. I'll see you all soon. Love you lots. Bye.